right, hello everybody, and welcome. Welcome to session number 214 of Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles. 214. Today we are in chapter 27, still, titled The Healing of the Dream. And we will concentrate on section 7, Roman numeral 7, entitled The Dreamer of the Dream. All righty then, let me reach over for my water. All right, and I'm smiling as I go through this. I'm looking at the book to go through it, and this is my notes. I tried to keep little notes in the book. It tells me that we went over this section once before with Dr. Jeffrey Siebert at the Foundation for A Course in Miracles in Roscoe, New York, when they were in Roscoe. And this was in July of the year 2000. And the reason why I'm smiling is because you could see that's what the book looks like, all these notes and underlines and everything. Dr. Jeffrey Siebert, who's still alive with the foundation, which is now in Henderson, Nevada. All right. He's just a wonderful person. He does a magnificent job. He was a wonderful student of Dr. Wapnick's and worked hand in glove with Dr. Wapnick at the foundation in Roscoe, along with Dr. Rosemary Lasasso, and all the people who worked there were just wonderful, wonderful. That includes Virginia. All right, Virginia was a wonderful person too. As were all the people whose names have drifted away from my ancient mind here. All right, let us begin. The dreamer of the dream. All right, let's remember that Jesus is talking to the decision maker, the decision-making part of the mind. All right, and that's where Jesus is trying to lead us with the Course in Miracles, back to that part of the mind that can choose, that can make the decision. Do I want the chaos and conflict of the thought of separation? Or do I want the peace of the oneness? Do I want the innocence, which is my true nature? My true nature is that, we use the term the Christ in the Course in Miracles. Right? That's who we truly are, the offspring of the original source, the Creator. And we use the term God, which has a lot of baggage for people. Okay? There's a lot of things to look at differently here. Okay? But nonetheless, Jesus is talking to the decision-making part of the mind. And another thing that come up for me as I'm rereading this is that Jesus is never pointing the finger, this is what you should do, you got to do this. It's not like that. It's almost as if he's presenting these things for our decision-making part of the mind to be an observer. Just look at what the results of this choice are. And look at the results of this choice. Right? And these are the results of the choices you have made, not as a condemnation, just as this is a matter of fact. All right, so don't just notice if your ego starts piling on what did I do that for? How could I be so silly? All that. Don't do that. Just observe, and as Jesus will say at the very end, choose once again. Okay. The dreamer of the dream. Paragraph 1. Suffering is an emphasis upon all that the world has done to injure you. Here is the world's demented version of salvation clearly shown. Like to a dream of punishment, in which the dreamer is unconscious of what brought on the attack against himself. He sees himself attacked unjustly, and by something not himself. He is the victim of this something else, a thing outside of himself, for which he has no reason to be held responsible. He must be innocent because he knows not what he does, but what is done to him. Yet is his own attack upon himself apparent still, for it is he who bears the suffering. And he cannot escape because its source is seen outside himself. Right. Yet is his own attack upon himself apparent still, for it is he who bears the suffering, and he cannot escape because its source has been seen outside himself. Right. And that's what he means by, we don't see the source of our suffering. We think it's the world outside. Everything that's outside of us is doing this to me. You know, the old question rises up: is it nature or is it nurture? It's the same thing. It's outside. It's outside of the decision-making part of the mind. Right? It's the mind doesn't come into it. It's the body that keeps us mindless, and the world, right, which is the proof that the witness that you separated. All right. So suffering is an emphasis upon all that the world has done to injure you. And so I suffer, and this is the proof. Look at this. Right? Here's the world's demented version of salvation, clearly so shown. Right? And it's like to a dream of punishment in which the dreamer is unconscious of what brought on the attack. Right? What brought on the attack against himself. He sees himself attacked unjustly and by something not himself. All right, so he says this is the world's demented version of things. All right, in which it's a dream of punishment in which the dreamer is unconscious. All right, I'm not aware of what brought on this suffering. Here is the victim of this something else, a thing outside himself for which he has no reason to be held responsible. So it's always, hey, it's not my fault. Look, this is what had been done to me. Right? And underneath it all is that thought that, yes, I'm an individual, but it's not my fault. I'm separate from God, but it's not my fault. All right? I'm always trying to... That's why we project out that initial guilt that we don't get in touch with, really. But it manifests in that projection of finding the guilty parties everywhere. Who did this to you? Who's responsible for this? Right? This is what the ego mind is constantly doing that. And that's, because we're not aware of who is in charge of the dream here. Right? So we think we're a victim of something else. And he cannot escape because the source is seen outside himself. Right? As long as I stay identified with this limited self, the source of all my discomfort, pain, suffering, even the happiness, will be seen outside of me. It's something else. In order to be happy, I have to engage in other things outside of myself. Right? And the suffering is just because of people, places, and things. Right? As long as I identify with this limited self. All right. So in paragraph 2, he says, now you're being shown that you can escape. All that is needed is that you look upon the problem as it is, not the way you have set it up. How could there be another way to solve a problem that is very simple, but has been obscured by heavy clouds of complication, which were made to keep the problem unresolved? Without the clouds, the problems will emerge in all its primitive simplicity. The problem will emerge in all its primitive simplicity. The choice will not be difficult, because the problem is absurd when it's clearly seen. No one has difficulty making up his mind to let simple problems be resolved if it is seen as hurting him, and also very easily removed. Right? So he says, look, you don't have difficulty in making up your mind to let the problem be resolved if it's seen as hurting you. You know, it's that old joke. It's like, doctor, my arm hurts when I do this. And the doctor says, well, don't do that. You know, the simple problem is removed when it's seen as hurting you. And that's what we'll do. You know, we'll do that, you know, in other instances in our life, you know. Well, you keep hurting yourself when you drink. All right, well, maybe you should stop drinking. You know, you keep hurting your family. Well, maybe you should stop doing that. You know, and, you know, all kinds of things. You know, no one has difficulty making up his mind to let a simple problem, and I'm not saying that alcoholism is a simple problem, believe me. It just happened to come up in my thoughts here. And no one has difficulty making up his mind to let a simple problem be resolved if it is seen as hurting him. All right, so let's take a simple problem. You know, my feet hurt when I walk. All right, and so the problem is to get corrective orthotics. That solved the problem. All right, you know, things like that. But he says, but what happens in the world here? And he says, because the main correction is very simple. But what happens is the world complicates it. All right? It's obscured. All right? He says, now you're shown that you can escape if you look upon the problem as it is, which is the choice to be separate. The choice to believe that I'm separated from God. That's the problem. All right? And he says, you look at it the way it is, not the way you've set it up. Like, oh, I don't know how I got here. It's not my fault. everything else is causing these problems. Everything else. That's the way I've set it up in my ego mind. I have to project the guilt, the responsibility. How could there be another way to solve a problem that is very simple, which is the choice to be separate, to believe you're separate, but it's been obscured by heavy clouds of complications. All right? The problems of the world, which just keep coming. They keep coming. As the guru once said when he was asked, what is life? And he said, life? He says, one damn thing after another. And that's what the life on this earth or in this planetary system seems to be. I mean, all people that I know and I talk to, and even the people that study the Course, they'll all say, never ends, one thing after another. And that's the complications. That's the clouds of complication, which were made to keep the problem unresolved. the problem that I believe I separated from God. All these problems keep coming. It's hard to keep plugging up the leaks when another leak appears. And you're running around, as the nuns used to say, like a chicken without a head. Ay, ay, ay. I don't think I'll use that image anymore. All right. Without the clouds, he says, the problem will emerge in all its primitive simplicity. All right. Without all the clouds. And that's what Jesus tells us in another part of the book. If you're having difficulty getting through the clouds, all these clouds that are obscuring, the clouds of complication. He says, if you're having difficulty, he goes, imagine yourself holding my hand. And he says, and this always struck me, it was so beautiful. He says, and I assure you, this will be no idle fantasy. All right? He says, we're not fantasizing here. He says, if you imagine yourself taking my hand and just asking Jesus, help me get through these clouds of complication. Help me get through this problem. He says, that will be no idle fantasy. That will be what's happening if we ask for the help. And the way we take his hand in my, constant words are, help me to see this correctly. I want my perception corrected. I'm willing to have it correctly. And he says, without the clouds, the problem will emerge in all its primitive simplicity, and the choice will not be difficult, because the problem is absurd when it's clearly seen. And the problem is that I believe I attacked God. I believe, and for that I'm so guilty. Oh my God, I ruined the oneness. But he says that never happened. And that's absurd once you clearly see that, the problem. He says, you'll see the problem is absurd. You can't do that. You never could. You can't leave the mind that thought of you. So he said, this whole thing is absurd if we just look at it calmly and clearly. All right? The belief in separation is the problem. But we have projected out into the world so as not to take responsibility for that, and everything else becomes the problem. And so Jesus will help us come back. Oh, Jesus, I think this is the problem. Can you help me with that? Just look at what we think the problem is. You don't have to jump steps or anything. You just, nobody's condemning you for thinking this is the problem, right? Oh, I have a problem with my foot, and it's hurting me. And I used to tell when I worked in the restaurant industry decades ago, I used to tell the waitresses that my personality will change with the condition of my foot. And that's what I think, so you think that's the problem. Yeah, I'm nasty because my foot hurts. I'm in pain. All right? So, and it's good to become aware that that's not really the reason why you're barking at people. All right? And the thing is not to just ignore it, it's to take care of it. Take care of it so the pain is diminished, and so that you can concentrate on being nice. All right? Yeah, just be a good human. All right? And I would also joke with the waitresses and tell them that you're all my wives from past lives come back to torment me. Probably for the nasty things I said and did. All right, Just a metaphysical joke there for the waitresses. All righty then. Back to the dream. All right. Paragraph 3. The reasoning by which the world is made, on which it rests, and by which it is maintained is simply this: you are the cause of what I do. Your presence justifies my wrath, and you exist and think apart from me. While you attack, I must be innocent, and what I suffer from is your attack. We can apply that to my interaction with the waitresses. You are the cause of what I do. All right. Your presence justifies my wrath, and you exist and think apart from me. While you attack, I must be innocent, and what I suffer from is your attack. All right. That's what the ego says. That's what we're taught to ingest and believe. And so Jesus says, no one who looks upon this reasoning exactly as it is could fail to see it does not follow, and it makes no sense. Yet it seems sensible, because it looks as if the world were hurting you. And so it seems as if there's no need to go beyond the obvious in terms of cause. So it just seems like, yes, you're right. All these people, places, and things are what's causing you your problems. So it seems sensible because it looks as if the world were hurting you. And so it seems as if there's no need to go beyond the obvious in terms of cause. All right, so no need to go beyond. I know what the cause is. It's you. All right. I'll get you fired. I never did that. Never got anybody fired. All righty then. But that's how the world proves itself. And everybody will agree with you. Yeah, you're right. And so it seems reasonable. It seems sensible. Because it really looks like the world is hurting you. And it seems there's no need to go beyond the obvious in terms of cause. But then Jesus says in 4, there is indeed a need to go beyond the obvious, to go beyond what our senses are reporting to us. The world's escape from condemnation, this is paragraph 4, by the way. The world's escape from condemnation is a need which those within the world are joined in sharing. Yet they do not recognize their common need, for each one thinks that he does his part, that if he does his part, the condemnation of the world will rest on him. And it is this he perceives to be his part in its deliverance. Vengeance must have a focus. Otherwise is the avenger's knife in his own hand and pointed to himself. And he must see it in another's hand if he would be the victim of attack he did not choose. And thus he suffers from the wounds a knife he does not hold has made upon himself. All right? So Jesus, this is so very poetic. All right? Jesus is not like me talking about waitresses in a restaurant setting. But it's the same message. What's happening is there is a need to go beyond what we think is the obvious cause. He says the world's escape from condemnation. Everybody's escape from guilt. Everybody's escape from, you're guilty, you did it, it's because of you. Right. The world's escape from condemnation is a need which those within the world are joined in sharing. In other words, we all have the same need, is to be released from the guilt, be released from the condemnation You're the one that caused all this. Right? And every time we judge or condemn or criticize an other, to whatever degree, because it don't matter. Right? Whatever the degrees don't matter. There's no order of difficulty in condemnation. And there's no order of difficulty in miracles. And I remember Ken was talking about oneness one time, and he goes, if you could just see that the initial need is that we all have the same need to escape the guilt. Right? It's a need which those within the world are joined in sharing. We're all the same. In that regard, we're all the same. All right, and then he starts to talk about the idea of being a martyr. In paragraph 4, sentence 4, for each one thinks that if he does his part, the condemnation of the world will rest on him. All right, I'll take it on. All right. And it is this that he perceives to be his part in the deliverance. So I think in order to deliver the world, I have to be the martyr. I'll show you, you know. And people take that very seriously. They really do. I mean, you can see it in the world today, still, in very obvious situations. And being a child of the 60s, I spent my teenage years in the 60s. You know, I was witness to the war that was on TV and everything that surrounded it, you know. And I would see the monks burning themselves, right, in order to bring attention to the idea that this was ridiculous. They wanted to deliver the world from these horrific things that were happening. Okay, that's just one instance, you know. I mean, we have, I was brought up in the Catholic Church. So many stories of martyrs, you know, and you know, it always seemed a hard way to go. So it is this he perceives to be his part in the deliverance. So vengeance must have a focus. Otherwise, so if the vengeance is not focused on me, the world doing it to me, otherwise the avenger's knife is in my hand, all right, and pointed to myself. I'm the one that did it to myself. And he must see it in another's hand. If he would be a victim of attack he did not choose, and thus he suffers from the wounds a knife he does not hold has made upon himself. Right? So the suffering is not seen as coming from a choice that I made, right? Which is the choice to believe in separation. The clouds of complication bring it to, look, the world is doing this to me, the innocent victim. All right? Paragraph 5. All right. Otherwise, he says, otherwise, you know, you look at this is a result of a choice that I made to believe I was separate from God. So to see some other as the cause of my pain, he goes, this is the purpose of the world, he sees. Right? To see some other as the cause of pain. This is the purpose of the world he sees. And looked at thus, the world provides the means by which this purpose seems to be fulfilled. The means attest the purpose, but are not themselves a cause. Nor will the cause be changed by seeing it apart from its effects. The cause produces the effects, which then bear witness to the cause and not themselves. Look then beyond the effects. Right? It is not here the cause of suffering and sin. Is it not here? Pardon me? It. Look then beyond effects. It is not here the cause of suffering and sin must lie. And dwell not on the suffering and the sin, for they are but reflections of their cause. So when he says, look then beyond the effects, the suffering, right, he says, go beyond that. In other words, he's telling us, go back to the mind. Right? Go back to the mind. Right? Because the effects, he says, in the effects, right, that's not where the cause of the suffering is. It's not the arrows that are going into me, right? That's not the cause of the suffering, right? And dwell not on the suffering and the sin. They're just reflections of the cause. So all the suffering is just a reflection of the cause, which is ultimately and always the belief that I separated from God. You are not the cause of my misery. I eventually have to take responsibility for that. And even in that, be the observer, not the judge and jury. Right? Because the Holy Spirit, the memory of who you really are, has already judged you innocent. Just be the observer. Right? Be Mr. Spock. If there are those of you who are old enough to remember Spock. Just observe. Right? Oh, I observe, Captain, that we're suffering. I've come to the conclusion it must be the result of the choice to believe that I'm separated from my source. And then we can choose again. Don't go on condemning yourself for any silly mistakes, all right? And dwell not on the suffering and sin, for they are but reflections of the cause. Everything here is a reflection of the cause, a reflection of the choice. So the first thing is to realize you have a mind, and you can go back to the mind, and there's a peaceful place in your mind where all the answers lie. Paragraph 6. The part you play in salvaging the world from condemnation is your own escape. Forget not that the witness to the world of evil cannot speak except for what has a need for evil in the world. And this is where your guilt was first beheld. In separation from your brother was the first attack upon yourself begun. And it is this the world bears witness to. Seek not another cause, nor look upon the mighty legions of its witnesses for its undoing, for they support its claim on your allegiance. What conceals the truth is not where you should look to find the truth. All right? Very poetic once again. But what he's saying is don't look in the world to find the truth. It was there to conceal the truth. All right? The part you play in salvaging the world is your own escape. Just seek to remember your own innocence, and the world is salvaged. The world is saved. And we do that in the process of forgiveness, because when we think it's this person who's the cause of my misery, and if I go to my friend Jesus and say, help me, I'm willing to see it correctly, all right? I'm willing to see the cause, all right? That's the process of even seeing your own innocence, because in the acceptance of the innocence of the other, you become aware of your own. And when you're aware of your own innocence, the world is saved. There's no need to project a world. Once I'm innocent, I don't need to project a world to prove I'm not guilty. It's these people. You see how that works? We believed we were guilty. We needed to get rid of that. So we thought, oh, ego counsels us, throw it out, get out of here. Get out of the mind and into the world. And you can find all the guilty parties. Everything, from the pollution in the air to the corrupt politicians to the evil world leaders and all that, everything, diseases, next door neighbors, everybody. It's all projection of the thought of guilt. All right? And he says, don't go looking out there for the solution, because you're not going to find the truth out there. You have to come back in. That's what Jesus helps us in the Course, to come back into the mind and ask to be shown. Show me the truth. Show me the truth. And what conceals the truth is not where you should look to find it. Paragraph 7. There's so much in this section, there's so much in all these paragraphs that I get tempted to go on and on. But let's go on to paragraph 7. The witnesses to sin all stand within one little space, and it is here you find the cause of your perspective on the world. Once you were unaware of what the cause of everything the world appeared to thrust upon you, uninvited and unasked, must really be. Of one thing you were sure: of all the many causes you perceived as bringing pain and suffering to you, your guilt was not among them, nor did you in any way request them for yourself. This is how all illusions came about. The one who makes them does not see himself as making them, and their reality does not depend on him. Whatever cause they have is something quite apart from him, and what he sees is separate from his mind. He cannot doubt his dream's reality because he does not see the part he plays in making them, and making them seem real. It's not my fault. All right? I have forgotten the part that I play in the dream. I am not the hero of the dream. I am the dreamer of the dream. All right? And he says the witnesses for sin, the entire world, and your body and everything in the world, everything you can sense, right? He says they all stand in one little space. And it's here you find the cause of your perspective on the world. Right? These are the projections of guilt. The guilt in my mind, that is the cause of my perspective on the world. Right? And it is that I'm asking Jesus, help me to clear this up, will you please? So that one little space is in your mind. Right? And he says, once you were unaware, but now you're becoming aware. All right? Now we can see something else. Once you were unaware of what the cause of everything the world appeared to thrust upon you, uninvited and unasked, must really be. This is very kind of Shakespearean, the sentences. Right? He says, once you were aware of the cause, what the cause must really be, all right, of everything that was thrust upon you. And of one thing you were sure: out of all these causes, Your guilt was not among them. All right? Nor did you in any way request them for yourself. All right? It's not your fault. He says, once you were unaware of that, he says, your guilt never occurred to you, that this is a projection of guilt. And he says, this is how illusions came about, because you forgot. Right? The one who makes them does not see himself as making them. All right? So I don't see myself as making up this illusory experience. I don't see myself as making them, and their reality does not depend on me. So I'm not the one that makes the world real and everything in it and all the views that upset me. All right. Their reality does not depend on me. It says whatever cause they have is something quite apart from me. And what I see is separate from my mind. Are you kidding me? And he cannot doubt his dreams' reality because he does not see the part he plays in making them and making them seem real. Right? I have forgotten my part. So everything else is, hey, it's outside of me. It's being done to me. So whatever cause they have is quite apart from me. In paragraph 8, Jesus says, no one can waken from a dream the world is dreaming for him. Right? He becomes a part of someone else's dream. He cannot choose to waken from a dream he did not make. Helpless he stands, a victim to a dream conceived and cherished by a separate mind. Careless indeed of him this mind must be, as thoughtless of his peace and happiness as is the weather or the time of day. It does not love him, but casts him as it will, in any role that satisfies its dream. So little is his worth that he is but a dancing shadow, leaping up and down according to a senseless plot, conceived within the idle dreaming of the world. I am the helpless victim. Right? This is the ego's God. The ego's God is dreaming this for me. Right? I mean, and there are always, we're taught to believe that there's a God who has some kind of interplay here. Right? Why did God do this to me? And God never gives you more than you can handle. Really? That's my sister Teresa. Somebody said that to her one day, and he says, well, you tell your preacher. No. She said, well, my preacher said that God never gives you more than you can handle, or more than you can carry, she said. And my sister said, well, you tell your preacher that I am a pack mule for the Lord. She goes, all right? She was tired of hearing that. But that's the ego's God. All right? I love all my sisters. I have 4 sisters and 4 brothers, all very clever and witty people. And very kind. They're all so kind. It's amazing. But I digress. But that's the ego's God. All right? And he says, no one can waken from a dream the world is dreaming for him. All right? And he says, then you become a part of someone else's dream. This is God's plan. All right? You can substitute the word dream for plan. All right? And he cannot choose to awaken from a dream he did not make. You're a helpless victim to a dream conceived and cherished by a separate mind. And you become like nothing, Helpless he stands. And he says, careless indeed of him, this mind must be of him. Right? Thoughtless of his peace, this mind that's dreaming the dream for you, doesn't care about your peace and your happiness. This is just the same as the time or the weather. It loves him not, but casts him as it will in any role that satisfies its dream. And people say, "Oh, God loves you," and other people say, "Well, yeah, how does that show up in my life?" It's always because people get angry at what's going on to them. And it says, "So little is your worth, you become but a dancing shadow." I have to laugh at picturing myself as a dancing shadow, leaping up and down. According to a senseless plot, conceived by the idle dreaming of the world. Paragraph 9. So we're helpless victims in the ego's thought system here. I'm not responsible for this. So paragraph 9, this is the only picture you can see, the one alternative you can choose. The other possibility, of course, is you be not the dreamer of your dreams. And this is what you choose if you deny the cause of suffering is in your mind. Right? So you choose to believe that you're just, you're a victim to the winds. Whatever happens, happens. Because you deny the cause of suffering is in your mind. Right? Be glad indeed that it is in your mind. He says, be happy that now you can see the cause of suffering. All right? For thus are you the one decider of your destiny, even in time, even within the illusion. The choice is yours to make between a sleeping death and dreams of evil or happy wakening and a joy of life. So the choice is yours between a sleeping death and dreams of evil or a happy wakening and a joy of life. Right? And you're not going to go poof. Right? Jesus says, no one is abruptly thrown into heaven. All right? Excuse me. But he says, rejoice that you can see the source of your suffering. It's in your mind. It's a result of a choice that I made to believe I was separated from the source of all joy, the source of all happiness, the source of all security. All right? The choice is yours to make between a sleeping death and dreams of evil or a happy awakening and a joy of life. Paragraph 10. What could you choose between but life or death, waking or sleeping, peace or war, your dreams or your reality? There is a risk of thinking that death is peace because the world equates the body with the self which God created. Yet a thing can never be its opposite, and death is opposite to peace because it is the opposite of life, and life is peace. Awaken and forget all thoughts of death, and you will find you have the peace of God. Yet if the choice is really given you, then you must see the causes of the things you choose between exactly as they are, and exactly where they are. Right? He says, so it's pretty simple. What could you choose between? What are the choices? It's life. In the mind, life in the realization of your innocence and oneness, or death, believing that you're separated from God, believing that you're separated from all that. The choice between waking or sleeping. Right? Peace or war. Your dreams or your reality. He goes, that's the choices. It's all the same. All right? And then he says, but look, there's a risk of thinking that death is peace. All right? You'll hear it so often, oh, he's not suffering anymore. Because, as they say these days, he has become unalive. All right? And that's the focus on the body. All right? Because the world equates the body with the self, with the higher self. The world equates the body with the self which God created. And then he just says very quickly, yet a thing can never be its opposite. Right? You can never really be this, because you are the opposite of this. You are the abstract thought of love, of purity, of happiness, all those things rolled into one. You are that. You are not the solid form. And as I keep saying, see, that's what, part of the fear is that, oh, I'm going to die. This is going to disappear. All right? First, you're going to, if we're following the steps of the Course, first, you're going to be a little happier. All right? And it's going to get better and better as far as happiness goes. Not the circumstances in the world, necessarily. All right? But our interpretation of things will make us happier. Because a thing can never be its opposite. You can't be this separate body. And death is opposite to peace. Right? And once again, Jesus is using that metaphor. There is no life outside of heaven. So death is the opposite. This whole experience in the world is the opposite to peace. So there's a risk of thinking that death is peace. He says, no, it's the opposite of peace. He goes, awaken. All right, remember who you are. Remember your relationship with your Creator. Remember that you are the Christ. And forget all these dreams of death, all these thoughts of death. And you will find you have the peace of God. Right? Yet if the choice is really given you, then you must see the cause of things you chose between, exactly as they are and where they are. So he's telling us once again, okay, come down from this lofty thought for a second that you are that. And so if you're going to make that choice, you got to realize the cause of things you choose between. All right? And the cause of things is always that choice to believe in separation or to believe in the oneness. All right? I want to get back to the oneness. That's the other choice. Help me see things correctly. Awaken and forget all thoughts of death, and you will find that you have peace. Yet if the choice is really given you, and it is, right, then you must see the cause of things. The cause of things you choose between, exactly as they are, and exactly where they are. They are in the mind. They are not outside in the world. We're choosing between things in the world. He says, you're just choosing which illusion you prefer. Right? And if there's a fear of going into the mind, you can ask Jesus about that too. I always say, take Jesus as, your good friend, all right? Your BFF, as some people say, all right? If he was in the CB business, he'd be your good buddy, all right? He's your good buddy on the road. And that's it. He's not above you in any way. It's just that he's already aware of who he is. And he's there to help. As he says, imagine yourself taking my hand. Right? And we see that the cause of things is in the mind. It's the choice. It's the result of choice. Paragraph E11. What choices can be made between two states, but one of which is clearly recognized? Who could be free to choose between effects when only one is seen is up to him? An honest choice could never be perceived as one in which the choice is split between a tiny you and an enormous world, with different dreams about the truth in you. The gap between reality and dreams lies not between the dreaming of the world and what you dream in secret. They are one. The dreaming of the world is but the part of your own dream you gave away and saw as if it were start and ending both. Yet was it started by your secret dream, which you do not perceive, although it caused the part you see and do not doubt is real. How could you doubt it while you lie asleep and dream in secret that its cause is real? All right? He's reiterating things in a very Shakespearean way. It's one of those things where, for me, the language and the sentence structure and everything that's being said, the logic, you have to slow down and say, what? What? All right. He says that what choices can be made between two states, but one of which is clearly recognized. Well, I clearly recognize the world. And who could be free to choose between effects when only one is seen as up to him? All right. And an honest choice could never be perceived as one in which the choice it's split between a tiny you and an enormous world. All right. The gap between reality and dreams lies not between the dreaming world and what you dream in secret. They are one. My secret dream is that I separated from God. That's the secret dream. And in order to get rid of the guilt of that, I had to project and make up a world. And then forget that I did that. Right? I dissociate and forget. And then I dream that the world is doing it to me. He says the gap between reality and dreams lies not between the dreaming of the world and what you dream in secret. He says they are one. So the world and your secret dream of succeeding and separating, he says that's all the same. It's all part of the same dream. And he says the dreaming of the world, all right, that, everything that goes on in the world is the part of my secret dream that I gave away. In other words, I projected it. It's not my fault. You did it. And saw it as if it were start and ending both. All right? Like everything begins and ends here in the world. He says, yet, was it started by your secret dream in my mind, which you do not perceive, although it caused the part you see we don't perceive that that was my secret dream, and it causes everything that I do think I see. Yet it was started by your secret dream, which you do not perceive, although it caused the part you do see and do not doubt is real. All right? He says, you don't doubt the world is real until you do. All right? He says, how could you doubt it while you lie asleep and dream in secret that its cause is real? So secretly we dream that the cause is real, that I really did separate. That's that secret dream. All right? The belief in separation. All right? So he says, how could you doubt it while you're still asleep? So we start to wake up and we start to question everything. And we start to ask, help me to see this correctly. Paragraph 12. A brother separated from yourself, an ancient enemy, a murderer who stalks you in the night and plots your death, yet plans that it be lingering and slow. Of this you dream. Yet underneath this dream is yet another dream, in which you become the murderer, the secret enemy, the scavenger, and the destroyer of your brother and the world alike. Here is the cause of suffering, the space between your little dreams and your reality, the little gap you do not even see, the birthplace of illusions and of fear, the time of terror and of ancient hate, the instant of disaster. All are here. Here is the cause of unreality, and it is here that it will be undone. Very vivid. It's like, it reminds me of that show called Criminal Minds. All right? He says, you dream of like an ancient enemy who's pursuing you, and it's going to make your death lingering and slow. He says, yet underneath is another dream, that secret dream, is that you are the killer. Right? You are the killer. And here's the cause of the unreality. All right? This is the birthplace of the illusions, of the fear, all right? Of the time of terror. Here is the cause of unreality, that I believe I separated from God. I'm the killer. And it is here in the mind where it will be undone, because it's a choice. In actuality, it's no big deal. We like to make it very dramatic, very Criminal Minds, and whatever other show you watch to catch the bad guy. It's all a product of that decision. The decision to choose to believe I'm separate. And once that happens, I forget that I made that choice, and everything is now being done to me. And I project out, and I project the world so that I can prove it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm not the killer. They are the killers. And it is here it will be undone in the mind. These thoughts will be undone because we're bringing them back to the mind and saying, Jesus, help me to see this correctly. Help me undo this. Paragraph 13. Remember, he's always talking to the decision-making part of the mind. He says, you are the dreamer of the world of dreams. No other cause it has, nor ever will. Nothing more fearful than an idle dream has terrified God's Son and made him think he has lost his innocence, denied his Father, and made war upon himself. So fearful is the dream, so seeming real, He could not waken to reality without the sweat of terror and the scream of mortal fear, unless a gentler dream preceded his awaking and allowed his calmer mind to welcome, not fear, the voice that calls with love to waken him. A gentler dream in which his suffering was healed and where his brother was his friend. God willed he wakened gently and with joy, and gave him means to waken without fear. Right? So awakening is a process. Right? He says, so you're the dreamer. You're the dreamer of the world of dreams. And you've dreamed that you've lost your innocence and denied your father and made war upon yourself. And he says, and this dream is so fearful that you can't wake up. You couldn't, if we shake you awake, you're going to be, oh. You're going to be sweating and shaking. And, all right? And so fearful. So seeming real, you could not waken to reality without the sweat of terror and a scream of mortal fear, unless a gentler dream preceded your awakening. All right, the process of having my perceptions changed, the process of undoing my ego beliefs. Help me to see it correctly. That's replacing the dreams of terror with gentler dreams. So we get to what Jesus refers to as the real world, where everything reflects the oneness. All right? And he says, God willed that you waken gently. And he gave you the means to waken without fear. That's the process of going to the mind and being willing to see correctly. And our horrific dreams, like dreams of anger and pain and suffering and sadness and depression, right? All of that, these will gradually be replaced. Or they'll be replaced. The speed depends on us. And without denial of any kind. Just the willingness to see the truth. Right? How willing am I to see the truth? Then the gentler dream replaces things. Right? And he says, accept the dream he gave instead of yours. Right, with the capital H, accept the dream that he gave. All right, God and the representatives, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, the symbols. It is not, this is paragraph 14, accept the dream he gave instead of yours. It is not difficult to change a dream once the dreamer has been recognized. Rest in the Holy Spirit and allow his gentle dreams to take the place of those you dreamed in terror and in fear of death. He brings forgiving dreams in which the choice is not who is the murderer and who shall be the victim. In the dreams he brings, there is no murderer and there is no death. The dream of guilt is fading from your sight, although your eyes are closed. A smile has come to lighten up your sleeping face. The sleep is peaceful now, for these are happy dreams. Right? All right? Jesus has come to be our teacher, and the conflict recedes. All right? Accept the dream he gave instead of yours. Help me to see correctly. He brings forgiving dreams. Right. And he says it's not difficult to change the dream once you realize who the dreamer is. Who's the one that made the choice to believe in separation? And don't be afraid to admit that. You're not going to get punished for it. Because if we stay here, that's punishment enough. All right. He says he's going to replace the dream with forgiving dreams. There's no murderer. There's no victims. All right. The dream of guilt is fading now when you do that. The process, it's fading. And a smile has come to lighten up your sleeping face. Even though we're still dreaming, we still have our eyes closed, metaphorically. All right, they're beginning to open. All right, and the sleep is becoming peaceful now because I'm asking, help me to see correctly. I want to be led toward peace. For these are happy dreams. These are the precursors to the total awakening. And then, paragraph 15, dream softly of your sinless brother who unites with you in holy innocence. And from this dream, the Lord of heaven will himself awaken his beloved Son. Dream of your brother's kindnesses, instead of dwelling in your dreams on his mistakes. Select his thoughtfulness to dream about, instead of counting up the hurts he gave. Forgive him his illusions, and give thanks to him for all the helpfulness he gave. And do not brush aside his many gifts, because he is not perfect in your dreams. He represents his Father, whom you see as offering both life and death to you. Paragraph 16, brother, he gives but life. Yet what you see as gifts your brother offers you represents the gifts you dream your Father gives to you. Let all your brother's gifts be seen in light of charity and kindness offered you. And let no pain disturb your dream of deep appreciation for his gifts to you. Right. So the sleep is peaceful because we're willing to have our perceptions changed. Right. The sleep is peaceful. The dreams become happier. And so he says, dream softly of your sinless brother. And we need help with that. We ask Jesus, help me to see my brother sinless. Right? And it is a process. He says, don't brush aside his many gifts because he's not perfect. Right? Dream of your brother's kindnesses instead of his mistakes. And we need help to do that. That's the process of forgiveness. Help me to see correctly. Because the other, represents the Father, whom you see as offering both life and death to you. Right? So this other is actually offering us life by giving us the opportunity to connect with the mind and ask for the truth to be revealed. The truth about this person and the truth about ourselves. And that's what he means by, brother, he gives but life. That's what God gives us, and that's what the other is offering us, the chance to realize that. Yet what you see as gifts your brother offers represents the gifts you dream your Father gives to you. Let all your brother's gifts be seen in light of charity and kindness offered to you. So let everything be seen in the light of charity, which is looking beyond the form to the truth and the kindness offered to you. And let no pain disturb your dream of deep appreciation for his gifts to you. All right. So once we realize we are the dreamer of the dream, we can go back to the mind where the dream occurs and ask for the correction. Help me undo this illusory dream. And with constant application of that, all of a sudden you do have that smiling face. Right? You become happier and you become grateful for the others in the world for reflecting the innocence back to you. And let no pain disturb your dream of deep appreciation for his gifts to you. All righty then. Thank you for the opportunity, and I will see you in the next session. All right, dream softly.